The main reason why an expert should be doing this is it's very difficult to maintain code. If your code is more dependent on third-party libraries, you might end up giving up on few enhancements because it'll be very difficult for you to add those. It's important that you make your code scalable and modular. Once you do that, you will be easily able to extend your app to any functionality you want. Element UI is a library that we created. This helps us build all the UI components in a generic way that we can reuse for all our clients. Element UI supports all the basic UI components, be it a button, text fields, list views, and when you want to use those components in any client-specific package, you just provide the configurations that you need. For example, the theme, the font styling and font sizes you want to use. This is a sample view of all the buttons that we've created. Now this is one of the themes. If you go for other theme, you will see that this theme is configured in a different styling and different font styles. You can also shift the theme from dark up to light or vice versa. All of this is possible because Element UI is built in such a way. Otherwise, you would have to do a lot of things to make your app supportive in both the modes. But if you're using Element UI, you will not have to worry about that. HydraTune is one of the clients app that we built using Element UI for building all the generic components. All the UI components that you see on the screen, these are part of Element UI package. The buttons, the rounded buttons, the smaller or larger ones, you just configure the sizes and styling you want. And once you do that, you can reuse all the UI components. You don't have to redesign them. The dial view that you see at the center, this is majorly a component that we would not want to add to Element UI because this is client specific. So we created a middleware layer where you can add all those client specific requirements and then use it with same theme configuration in your client app. Building dial view was really complicated. It required a lot of understanding of how the composable works in Android. The way we implemented Element UI was to generify everything. But in order to do that, you need to provide the configurations, which is done by the middleware layer. The Element UI needs to be exposed so that it can be used by other packages. And that was the challenging part. To make sure that Element UI is always using the middleware layer where you provide all the configurations and then use it, rather than using Element UI directly in the client app. If you look into Element UI, you would see that this element views is the controller class and it has access to all the view components that you created. And the way these components are implemented is that you provide all the configurations to a generic view method and it uses all those configurations to create that view. So if I show you an example of how the buttons are implemented, you can go into this generic button file and you would see that it takes in all those parameters that we want to configure and then create an outline button from that. Now if you want to see how it looks, here's a split view and then you can see the different configurations for this button. Right now you're seeing it in dark mode because this is configured to be in dark mode. You can easily control them by just passing a boolean. So you can simply write dark theme as false and then it'll change the theme. I think you can make pretty much anything with this. We just want to make sure that all the things that are easy to do but are repetitive can be done using these libraries so that we don't have to do that again and again. If you want to just create a button using composables, you would have to write at least a few lines of codes for that. But if you use Element UI, you just have to write one line of code. That's the coolest thing about these libraries. It optimizes, it saves your time, it helps you build product faster and ship it to the market.